Welcome. Today is the fifth session. We are going to do the fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Shimte Jayattak Swaminati Namne Acharyapadaya Nataya Kupapadaya Gaur Katha Dhamdaya Nagar Grantarne Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminati Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschat Deshtarne Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Rama Hare 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 Krishna. So, this is the screen. Brinda, okay. So, this is called, fifth chapter is Karma Yoga or action in Krishna consciousness. So, very practical. We did Karma Yoga in the third chapter. And now, in greater detail, Krishna is saying how to act in Krishna consciousness. Okay. Do I have to do something? Or it's meant for someone else? I mean, for Brinda. To start slideshow. Okay. So, Arjuna's confusion. Again, he was confused in the third chapter because he saw that Krishna was asking him, giving him all kinds of knowledge, and then about how to realize oneself, that you're not the body. And again, he's asking him to work in the battlefield. So here again, in the fourth chapter, Krishna told him that all kinds of sacrificial work leads to transcendental knowledge. So if knowledge is the aim of all the work, then why is Krishna asking him to wake up and fight? So again, he's confused. So he's asking, do you want me to work in devotion or inaction knowledge? I want to give a very good analogy by which you can understand what is the kind of confusion that Arjuna is facing. So see, there is a small girl and she's very, attached to eating ice cream. So, but because of that, she's, because of eating too much of ice cream, her health is suffering a lot, and she's undergoing a lot of pain. And the doctor has said that, ice cream is not good for her health. And actually what is good for her health is sweet rice. Now, there is two choices. She doesn't like sweet rice. The doctor says sweet rice is only good for her. And she doesn't like sweet rice, and she's very attached to ice cream, eating ice cream. So there are two options before her. Now, either she can stop eating ice cream completely, or her father is telling her, you go and buy ice cream. Every day she was buying ice cream and coming, and she used to eat it herself. So now her father is saying, go and buy the ice cream and give it to me. So she's very confused. You're saying ice cream is not good for me? Then why are you asking me to go and buy ice cream? Right? She says, I'm not supposed to eat ice cream. Why do you want me to go? I will stop eating ice cream. I can control myself and I will stop eating ice cream. So this is the confusion that Arjuna is in. If you say that I should not be attached to the results of my work, then let me stop work. Why do you want me to engage in work? I will be renounced. So this girl is saying, I will not eat ice cream. So father is saying, no, I know you're attached very much to ice cream. So go buy and come and you give it to me. You don't eat it. So, but then she's tempted. She likes ice cream. So she keeps bringing it home, and father allows her to take a little, a lot in the beginning. She gives a little to father. And because she's giving to so slowly what is happening is she's, and then father also gives it to other people. in the family, and so on. So what is happening? Everyone is beginning to feel so happy, and that, you know, she's becoming more selfless. Before, she was eating all the ice cream herself. Now she's giving it to others, and so she's enjoying this higher taste. You know, she's developing love because she thinks, oh, my family is very happy with me. She's having a very loving relationship with them. And meanwhile, what is happening is, she's eating lesser and lesser of that ice cream. She gets more joy of sharing it with her family. So then what happens is, meanwhile, her mother is also making sweet rice and giving her. So she starts to take sweet rice. Now, because her attachment to ice cream is reducing, she is also beginning to enjoy eating sweet rice. So then slowly what happens is, ice cream is replaced by sweet rice. Now, suppose she had stopped ice cream completely, she would never have got the taste of sweet rice. So she would be just left with nothing. So this is precisely the situation that Arjuna is in. He thinks that if I cannot enjoy my ice cream, why should I go and buy it? I will stop it. But Krishna is saying, no, you go and buy. Why? Because you're still attached to ice cream. You may think I will stop ice cream, but what will you do? You'll be thinking about the ice cream all the time. And then what will you do? You will illegally go and try to buy it and eat it yourself, because your senses will not allow you. And then you may not tell your father and slip out. And then just to get the money, you may do all kinds of things, steal some money maybe. So this is what happens. That is why Krishna says, engage your senses, because now you're very attached to using the senses. So then it's better to use the senses and work in devotion for me. Give the results to me. Start giving little by little. Then you develop a higher taste. And then you start also doing devotional activities, which is like the sweet rice. Then what will happen? One day you'll say, I don't want all these things. I only want sweet rice. Okay. Next slide. So we go to verses 1 to 10. The summary is, work and devotion better than renunciation of work. One detached from the fruits of his work is known to be renounced and can easily free himself from material bondage and be liberated. Karma Yoga and Sankhya Yoga both have the same goal. Karma Yoga, or working for Krishna, gives complete knowledge, and then it is like a lotus leaf while in water is untouched by it. So these are the topics which will be there in these verses 1 to 10. Next slide. Okay, so to Arjuna, work and renunciation are incompatible. Why? Because he is constantly thinking that I am working for myself. So if I'm working for myself, I should not enjoy the results. Okay, I will just renounce. Why should I work if I cannot enjoy the fruits of my result? So that is why he thinks, how can I be renounced also and work also? Where is the need? This is his confusion. Okay, please go to the next slide. So work and renunciation seems incompatible to Arjuna, but working in knowledge causes no reaction. So same as in action, we saw yesterday how action, and there is bottom part, not you mean of the this thing, screen share, it's not visible.
Mataji, it is visible for everybody else, Mataji. Only for that Prabhu.
No, how many points? 3 points are there. 3 points only.
Okay, 3 points. So work and renunciation seems incompatible to Arjuna. Working in knowledge causes no reaction. So same as inaction. So this is what we learned yesterday, that one who knows inaction and action, and action and inaction. So even when you're acting, but you are not attached to you're working in knowledge that I'm not this body, that I'm working for purifying my consciousness, and I want to give the results to Krishna. So then there is no action or karma for it. So it is as good as inaction. Then doubt of Arjuna is to cease work or work with full knowledge. This is his confusion. If I'm not supposed to enjoy the results of my work, then I might as well develop knowledge about myself. Why should I work and then get knowledge? This is his confusion. Okay, go to the next. So this is the thing, I mean, very important aspect of Krishna consciousness that Krishna is revealing to Arjuna. To use mind and thinking of Krishna is as equivalent as to engage the body in the service of Krishna. So everything should be engaged for Krishna, both body and the mind. Okay, next slide. So why is Krishna not asking him to renounce? If you're not supposed to enjoy the results of your work, then you just go and sit and cultivate knowledge about who you are. Why should you work in knowledge? Because mere renunciation does not purify the heart. The heart has to be purified. Theoretically, you may understand that I'm not this body, I'm not supposed to enjoy, and so on. But can you actually follow it? Because the heart has to be purified. So we have to act on the status of the soul. What is that? Simply knowledge alone does not purify the heart, but we have to start acting on the platform of the soul and to be a servant of Krishna. Renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete. Just like I told you that the doctor asked the girl to be attached to sweet rice. Simply giving up ice cream is not complete. You have to also take the good thing. You know, mere absence of negative is not okay, not enough. You have to go to the positive. And so renunciation without Krishna consciousness is incomplete. Everything in this world belongs to Krishna. So everything should be used in Krishna's service. Working with this knowledge, one gets complete knowledge. And we'll see in 5.6, this is what Krishna says. Merely renouncing all activities, yet not engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, cannot make one happy. But a thoughtful person engaged in devotional service can achieve the supreme without delay. Okay? So that is why he is asking him to fight, because just by renouncing work, you cannot become happy. But engaging in devotional service, you can achieve the supreme. Okay, yes. Next slide. So this is another very important concept that we have to know, that attachment to Krishna is the same as detachment from matter. You don't have to separately try to detach yourself. As you become more attached to Krishna, automatically you become detached from matter, enjoying material things. Okay, second, next slide. Yeah. So this Sankhya Yoga, or analytical study of the material world and detachment of matter. So this is what Sankhya Yoga talks about. I mean, you have to be first renounced and become detached and understand what is the root of existence. Studying what is matter, how does it, what are the elements of matter, what is this, I mean, you find out what are all the components of this body, of this universe. And then finally, you come to the conclusion that the root of all existence is Vishnu. So this is the Sankhya Yoga method by analytical study of the material world, and you simultaneously detach yourself from matter. Now, Karma Yoga means attachment to Krishna. It starts with watering the root of existence. So one who is attached to Krishna is automatically detached from matter. Now, you can understand it by an example. Suppose in your hand there is a ball, and you want to pick up a book from below. Okay, one method, the Sankhya method, is to drop the ball first and then pick up the book. And the Karma Yoga method is you go and pick up the book, automatically the ball drops off. So you don't, I mean, it happens automatically. You don't have to go step by step. Whereas in Sankhya Yoga, you first put down the ball and then pick up the book. So you have to become detached first, and then you strive for attachment. Whereas in Karma Yoga, direct, you just become attached to Krishna and automatically detachment happens. So I want to tell you, narrate a pastime from the Srimad Bhagavatam, which you can understand this concept very clearly. See, there is Ambarisha Maharaj. He was the emperor of this whole world on the earth planet. He was ruling over the entire world, but he was a great devotee of Krishna. So, I mean, but why I said that was, he was so busy. Imagine, he's the emperor of the world, and yet every day he would go to his temple in his palace, and he would personally, clean the floor for the Lord. He would first of all use his eyes to see the beautiful form of the Lord, smell the flowers and tulasi, which is, the flowers which are offered to the lotus feet of the Lord. And with his tongue, he would taste the tulasi leaves offered to his lotus feet. And then with his hands, he would mop the floor. With his legs, he would walk to the temple. And in this way, he was engaging all his senses in serving the Lord. So what happened? He was completely attached to Krishna. Even though he was doing such a responsible job in the material world, he was a family person. On top of that, he was ruling over the whole world. So this another person, Durvasa Muni, he was a renounced person. He's a sannyasi, the great yogi Durvasa Muni, who gets very angry fast. And he's also gives blessings very quickly, but he also gets very angry fast. So he is not a bhakti yogi. He is following this yogi, from detachment and so on. So once he comes to visit Ambarish Maharaj, and he thinks, so when Ambarish Maharaj had just finished his Ekadashi Vrata, and he was just about to break his fast along with his wife, and this happened in Mathura. He had specially gone from his capital city. He had gone all the way to follow this Vrata for a year. So every Ekadashi was following, and this particular Ekadashi Vrata, he had to break his fast. And right at that moment, Durvas Muni arrived with all his followers. So Ambarish Maharaj, he invited him with great respect and said, please come and honor the prasadam with us. Then at that time, Durvas Muni said, I will go have my bath and then come. So Ambarish Maharaj was waiting for him. But then what happened? It got delayed, and the time or muhurta for completing for having the prasadam, you have to finish it within that muhurtam. Otherwise, the effect of the Ekadashi Vrata will not be there. There was just a moment left, and he didn't know what to do, because if he ate without his guest being there, it would be like insulting him. At the same time, he didn't want to lose out on the benefit of performing that Ekadashi Vrata. So he consulted the Brahmanas, and because he had done Nirjala Vrata without water, the whole fast, So he thought, I will just take water. So water is like breaking the fast also, and at the same time, it is not really eating any of the food. So he took the water. But Durvasa Muni, by his mystic power, he knew what had happened. And he became very angry. He felt insulted. And he just stormed into Ambarish Maharaj's palace, and he said, how dare you insult me like this? You have invited me as a guest to your house, and you have this thing. So, in the mind of Durvasa Muni, he thought, can you go to the previous slide? No, before this, that same screen that I was talking about. Yes. Then he says that you have, Durvasa Muni feels that Ambarish Maharaj, he is actually a person of this material world. He is a householder, he's a king, and so on. So he is not very advanced, whereas I have renounced everything, I'm more advanced. And so he creates a demon and tries to attack him and kill him. So his false ego is affected so much. Whereas Ambarish Maharaj, who's very surrendered, he was working even his kingdom, he's taking care only as a service to Krishna. So he's not at all attached. And when Durvasa Muni curses him, he accepts him. I mean, Durvasa Muni is trying to punish him, and he's patiently accepting it. He didn't protest or do anything. Meanwhile, Krishna sends his Sudarshana Chakra, and that Sudarshana Chakra kills the demon, and it starts chasing Durvasa Muni. And he goes all through the universe. Finally, he reaches Vishnu and he falls at his feet. Please save me. The Sudarshan Chakra is chasing me and I'm feeling the heat so much. So the Vishnu says, see, you have offended my devotee. He has to forgive you, only then I can forgive. So then Durvasa Muni comes back to Ambarish Maharaj and falls at his lotus feet. So then he realizes what it is to work for Krishna. A devotee of Krishna who is working for Krishna may be engaged in all kinds of material activities, but his consciousness is surrendered to Krishna. So he is more self-controlled and he has realized Krishna, whereas a person who is simply renouncing need not have this devotion to Krishna. Then he understands how devotional service is better than even renunciation. Okay, please go to the next slide. And devotee of the Lord loves all and sees them as part of Krishna. So this is what happens. One who controls, please go to the next slide. Krishna, 1 minute. Krishna is the knower of, 1 minute. Let me read that, what's written there. Krishna is the knower of everything because he does not see outside in, but inside out. Gopinath Ji sees the motivations, intentions, and aspirations within our heart. So that is what is more important for him. Not what we are doing externally, but what is our motivation within the heart. That is why it doesn't matter, even if whatever work you may be doing, he's seeing in what mood you're performing that. Okay, next slide. Then, devotees of the Lord loves all, sees them as part of Krishna, thinks himself servant of all. So because of that mood, everyone is satisfied with his work. And so he is dear to everyone. And this is 5.7. Krishna says, one who works in devotion, who is a pure soul, who controls his mind and senses, is dear to everyone. And everyone is dear to him. Though always working, such a man is never entangled. So if somebody is controlled in his senses and he thinks himself as a servant to all, naturally he'll become dear to all, isn't it? It is only when we are greedy for the fruits of our labor, then what happens? We feel envious, or we have something like a friend or an enemy according to he fulfill my, whoever gives me more satisfaction, we consider as a friend, and then we are partial to them, and so on. But A person who surrendered to Krishna and he thinks everyone is part of Krishna does not discriminate like that. And so everybody is satisfied with his work and he is dear to everyone. Okay, next slide. So what is the consciousness of a self-realized soul? Is when you're acting for Krishna, not with his senses. Krishna conscious person does not expect good or bad results. His mind and intelligence are fully controlled. Okay, and he's not aware of his senses, but about Krishna. Please go to the next slide. So, while working, a self-realized soul is aware of Krishna, not his senses. So, he understands that he is not the doer. Because the body is performing so many activities, and he is just a witness to that. Because he knows he's separate from the body, performing duty without attachment to results. And this is compared to a lotus leaf untouched by water. So we know the lotus leaf has got a wax-like substance on the surface, and so the water does not mix with the leaf. So in the same way, a person who is in Krishna consciousness may do all kinds of activities and without and he's not attached to the results because he knows he's separate. He's not the doer, and so that is. So the verse is 5.10. One who performs his duty without attachment, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by sinful action, as the lotus leaf is untouched by water. Okay, next slide. So now we go to the next section, 11 to 21. One in Krishna consciousness acts only for self-purification. Attached to Krishna, so no anxiety over results of work. Identifies with the super soul and not the body. I'm sorry, there is one more verse, which the previous one, the 11th verse, no, correct, no, it's all right. So one in Krishna consciousness acts only for self-purification, attached to Krishna, so no anxiety over results of work, identifies with the super soul and not the body. The three doers of every action. Every action has got three doers, not only one. But who is actually responsible for the action? A perfect devotee achieves complete knowledge and is liberated. Okay, next slide. So, why are we anxious, or why is there so much stress? You know, if we are, suppose when we are doing work, there is no stress, then we become happy, isn't it? There is no need to feel stress when we are doing work. What is the cause of the stress? Is only because we are worrying about the results or worrying about whether I will be able to enjoy enough of the results. That's the what causes all the tension. But if you're offering the results to Krishna, then you're always very happy because you're thinking about Krishna. And Krishna also says, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water, I will accept it. Anything that is offered with love to him. So in the same way, the results of our work, if we are dedicating to him, he accepts it. And then we leave it to Krishna, that you're the controller. And so there is no anxiety. Please go to the next slide. Cause for anxiety is greed for enjoying the results. Devotee works only for purification of consciousness, offers result to Krishna. Must I work? And Krishna says you have to work for purification of your consciousness. And here in 11 and 12, 5.11 says, the yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, and intelligence, and even with the senses, only for the purpose of purification. Then one more, that 5.12. The steadily devoted soul attains unadulterated peace because he offers the result of all activities to me. Whereas a person who is not in union with the divine, who is greedy for the fruits of his labor, becomes entangled. So we'll see what are the benefits of working in this kind of consciousness. Yes. Okay. So can we go to the next slide? So ignorance of our identity makes us identify with our body. I'm a doctor, I'm a lawyer, I'm an actor, I'm an engineer. There's nothing wrong. A devotee may also be all this, but their complete identity is based on this position or what their work or something about connected with their body. But a devotee understands we are neither proprietor nor controller. We don't own this body, nor are we controlling this body. So some important aspects of who's the controller, all this we'll see. Please go to the next slide. You see how the modes of material nature, okay, anyway, that picture is here also. Ignorance makes us identify with our body, the city of 9 gates. City of 9 gates. What are those gates? All the openings of this body. Eyes, ears, mouth, that makes it 5. And then anus and rectum. 6, 7. And 2, 4, 5. The genitals 7, and then I think the head is 1, 8, and it's the 9th one, 9 gates, eyes in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is the 9th one. Anyway, so we have these gates in the body. So when the embodied living entity, living being, controls his nature and mentally renounces all actions, he resides happily in the city of 9 gates, the material body, neither working nor causing work to be done. So a body, a result of various varieties of actions and reactions. However we got this body, it's because of our karma. It's been given. We didn't choose this body. We have been given this body. So how do we understand that the modes of the material nature activate this body? Okay, when, eyes 2, ears 2, that is 4. Nose. Sorry, I didn't take nose 2. 2. Yes, Prabhu. And then eyes, ears, nose, that is 6. And then genitals and 1 mouth. Genitals and rectum. So that is 8, no? And then okay. Nabi. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. So, yes. One genital and 1 anus. Okay. So now, we have got this body because of our past reactions, and when we understand that I'm separate from this body, then we understand that we are not the doer. The body is being activated. It's like a machine. Yeah, okay, thank you, all of you. So, when we understand that the body is different from me, then we know that it's the body is like a machine and it's being activated. So many things are happening, and then I'm just a witness to that. The modes of the material nature is actually activating the body. So what is the modes of material nature? It is goodness, passion, and ignorance. So whenever these modes are prominent, that is how the body, suppose the body is, in a mode of ignorance, then you feel very dull and sleepy. Even if you don't want that, you want to be active, but you're not able to control it. The body is anyway feeling very sleepy and so on. Or when the body is in the mode of passion, you feel very active. You want to go here and there. You want to do very busy with all activities. Maybe you don't want to do that, but then the body is still activated like that. So you can understand it is the modes of material nature which are activating this body. And we are neither the proprietor nor the controller. So how to become master of the body? By working in this knowledge. So when we work, understanding that I'm not this body, and you dedicate the results to the Supreme Lord, then gradually what happens is you become the master and you can control the modes. The modes will not control you. But anyway, we're talking about when a person is conditioned, the modes are controlling him, and who is the controller of the modes? It's Krishna. So, and we are working just however we are being controlled by the modes. Okay, next slide. So in this body, there is another doer. We saw two doers. One is ourselves, the soul. We are doing things. And then we also saw that the modes of the material nature is also doing. It is activating our body. Then here, the Lord fulfills our desire. Everyone is at liberty to desire as he likes, but the desire is fulfilled by the Supreme Lord. So the Paramatma in the heart, he is sanctioning. He is overseeing everything and he is sanctioning. And according to his sanction only, the material modes are working. Okay, so there are three doers of every action. Can you go to the next slide? So the Lord fulfills our desires, but he is not responsible for our actions and reactions. So even though it is only the Lord who is fulfilling everything, under his direction only we are getting everything. But he is not responsible for what we are doing. Because some people say, oh, if the Lord is controlling everything, why can't he control me and not let me do sinful things? Why can't he control me and make me do all pious things? We can ask. But he is not responsible. He only does according to our desires. But when we desire him, then only he takes charge, gives special care for us in all respects. Materially, spiritually, he takes special care when we stop desiring material things, but instead turn to him and we desire to be with him. I mean, to have a relationship with him. Okay, next slide. So who is responsible then for our actions if the soul is not the doer? Okay, we are not also doing. Is it the modes of material nature which is controlling us? Is it the doer? Or Paramatma, who is sanctioning these activities and controlling the modes, is he the doer of all the activities? The living entity is not actually the doer. We're not supposed to be the doers. Then why are we responsible? Okay, why do I get the karma? If Krishna is sanctioning all this and the material modes are actually controlling us and making me do so many things, why do I have to suffer for the karma? And the answer is the living entity is responsible because he desires the independent material enjoyment. Because Krishna is fulfilling everything according to our desires. We want to enjoy materially, he strengthens that. He is not responsible for what we are desiring. If we desire wrong things and then we suffer because of that, we cannot blame him. He is simply fulfilling whatever we want. And modes are also activating according to our desires and what we deserve. Only we have the independence to desire what we want. Suppose we desire Krishna, then Krishna is very happy and he personally takes charge. Then why wrong things get sanctioned? Because we desired it. We are, see, you may say that the modes of material nature is covering me. So how am I responsible? If the mode of nature, passion nature or passionate nature, ignorance, mode of ignorance is making me desire sinful activities, then how can I be blamed? You can be blamed because you can overcome the modes by surrendering to Krishna, by desiring him. This is the only independence we have. Do we want to surrender to Maya or do we want to surrender to Krishna? So that is why we are held responsible. Because we chose wrong thing, we chose Maya, then Maya will keep on pulling us down. The modes of material nature will keep acting on us and make us more and more bound in material nature. And we'll naturally, lust is the cause of sinful activities. So we'll become completely entangled and develop more and more lust, which covers our soul. And then we'll be completely entangled in sinful activities. So we'll see this 5.14 and 15. The embodied spirit, master of the city of the body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. But you can be responsible because it is a person. Modes of material nature is, it's a nature of the body. Nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers their real knowledge. So this is the only reason, because we are in ignorance and we have desired wrongly, so we are held accountable and we have to suffer or enjoy the actions. Okay, please go to the next slide. So text 16 says, when, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nations is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So Krishna has, not only, given us facility to forget him and enjoy, but he's also giving us all the facilities to get knowledge by which our ignorance is destroyed. And that is why we need a bona fide spiritual master who will give us knowledge and take us back to Krishna. Next slide. When enlightened with knowledge that this truth is revealed, so the truth about our actual reality, what is our nature, requirement of a bona fide spiritual master, then one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge will all be fixed in the Supreme. So in text 17, he says, when one's intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge are all fixed in the Supreme, then one becomes fully cleansed of misgivings to complete knowledge and thus proceeds straight on the path of liberation. So this is very essential. Otherwise, we are in ignorance. When we are born, we are completely ignorant. The seminal birth, just we get a body and we are fully attached to that body. And to get enlightenment, we need a spiritual master who is sent by Krishna, who is bona fide, who is coming in the parampara, who is following all his instructions. And he repeats the words of Krishna. He doesn't make up his own theories. Whatever Krishna has said, he tells the disciple. And not only that, Krishna conveys, he's the expansion of the Paramatma. And by obeying him or taking his instructions, we get connected to the Paramatma. Then our intelligence, mind, faith, and refuge can all be fixed in the Supreme. So this is available for everyone because the Paramatma himself is arranging all these things. The minute we start desiring him, then he makes all these arrangements. Until then, we are completely in ignorance and the modes of the material nature are acting on us, and Krishna is controlling, sanctioning that. Okay, next slide. So now what happens when a person gets enlightened? What does he see? When he sees different types of bodies, he sees the cow, he sees a brahmana, he sees an elephant, and then he sees a low class person and a dog, and he's called low class because he's eating the dog eater. What he sees is not the external bodies, but he's seeing the Paramatma in everyone because he's connected with the Paramatma. Because of enlightenment coming from a spiritual master, so he's connected with the divine, right? So he's connected with his Paramatma, and so because of that, he becomes also equal like the Paramatma. Paramatma is equal to everyone. He is accompanying all jivas. He doesn't discriminate between one soul and the other. Every jiva he is along with that. So because of realizing the Paramatma, then this realized soul also sees only Paramatma everywhere, and so he doesn't discriminate. He respects all living entities. Yes. Next slide. Seeing a vision of one in knowledge. Seeing all living beings, that is a brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, he sees everyone with an equal vision because Paramatma is present in all the hearts. So he is steady both in happiness and distress. Okay, because you have knowledge and you know that everything is controlled by the Paramatma and you are surrendered to the Paramatma. So happiness, material happiness and distress does not disturb him. Okay, next. So we see that material civilization is all geared towards material pleasures, which are temporary. But what do wise men concentrate on? Transcendental pleasure. Pleasure, we are all seeking pleasure. Everyone wants pleasure and happiness, enjoyment. That is our, birthright. Nobody is saying you have to suffer and not enjoy. But we have to choose what kind of pleasure we are seeking. Something which is temporary, something for which we have to work very hard, something which gives us a lot of pain and anxiety and stress, or something which is very joyful, which makes us happy, which, and it's eternal, and there is no stress in that, and there are no reactions for all our work. We can always be happy. And most important, the Lord himself is protecting such a person. So this is what we have to decide, what we want. Please go to the next slide. Material pleasures are temporary. They're also sources of misery. That is why it is like eating ice cream mixed with sand, right? We love ice cream, but suppose you put sand also, mix sand with it and eat. Can you enjoy the ice cream? You're always, whatever happiness you're getting out of it is mixed with all the, the bad taste of the sand. And so that is why for getting material pleasures means that you also get misery along with that. And so wise men concentrate on transcendental pleasure, which is pure. There is no suffering at all mixed with it. Text 20, a person who neither rejoices upon achieving something pleasant, nor laments upon obtaining something unpleasant, who's self-intelligent, who's unbewildered, and who knows the science of God, is already situated in transcendence. Such a liberated person is not attracted to material sense pleasure, but is always in trance, enjoying the pleasure within. In this way, the self-realized person enjoys unlimited happiness, for he concentrates on the Supreme. Okay. Next slide. Now we go to verses 22 to 29. Tolerating the 6 urges, happiness is within, working for welfare of all. Ashtanga Yoga also achieves this and the formula for peace. This is the last section. So, yeah, please go to the next slide. Tolerating the 6 urges of the body is a sign of self-realization. What are the 6 urges? Which is the urge of the tongue. We want to eat something which we find very tasty. And the urge of speech also. We want to talk. We can't control our speech. Then urges of hunger, urges of genitals. And these are the urges of the body, wanting to talk, and urges of anger, and okay, and urge of belly, genital, speech. So the body is urging us, we are not able to control that. But if you can tolerate the urges, that is a sign of self-realization. Then we'll be well situated and happy. And such a person is always working for the welfare of others, enlightening them about their lost relationship with Krishna. So the best, welfare work we can give others, I mean, helping them with material things is also good when it's required. But if you want to give people permanent happiness, then if somebody is suffering, it is only because of their forgotten relationship with the Supreme Lord. And so what happens is they are, it's in the given in the nectar of instruction, the 6 urges of the tongue, urges of the stomach, urges of the genitals. Okay, so those are the urges of the body, and the mind's demands. Okay, the mind's demands: action of anger, tongue, belly, and genitals. So mind's demands, I forgot that. So this, if you can tolerate, that means it's a sign of self-realization, and you're well situated and happy, and you're working for the welfare of others, enlightening them about their lost relationship with Krishna. Because we want to release them permanently from miseries, not just a little bit. Okay, you need some money, I help you now. Okay, sometimes if somebody is really helpless, and it's not that we don't deny help, but unless you connect them with Krishna, you're not really giving them proper help. Suppose a child is lost from his parents and is wandering on the road. Now, if you just give him some money, okay, buy whatever you want, is that really genuine help? Because maybe for 1 or 2 days, a child can survive by himself. But suppose instead of that, you take the child back to the parents and say that, see, you don't have to be on the road. You're well cared for and you're going to live like a king. So that is real, help for people. So enlightening people about their lost relationship with Krishna is the act of someone who is self-realized. Okay, please go to the next slide. Constantly thinking of Krishna, engaging in his service, so elevation to the spiritual world. 25 and 26, he says, those who are beyond the dualities that arise from doubts, whose minds are engaged within, who are always busy working for the welfare of all living beings, and for free from all sins, achieve liberation in the Supreme. And those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Why does he say, after saying that you have to control your senses and so on? I mean, it's very difficult work. But then here he is saying, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Why? Because he's trying to think about Krishna just by doing devotional service. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in the transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. So, because a devotee of the Lord constantly, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Why? Because here Prabhupada gives an example of how the fish and the tortoise and the and birds, how do they bring up their children? The fish is just by looking at the other its children, it's bringing up. It has no hands or legs or anything. It's just swimming around just by watching its young ones, offsprings, it's bringing it up. And then tortoise, it lays the eggs on the land, on the shore, and it's in the water. And just by meditating, it is, bringing up the child, making it the egg grow, and then finally it hatches, and then it goes and brings the baby back. So just by meditation, you can, when it's taking care, or just by touch, the birds and all that, just through, they're bringing the food, but other than that, it is just by touch. So similarly, do I also, O Padmaja. So Krishna is also, if we are meditating on him, then what happens? Although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of him constantly. Just like these tortoise and all that, just by meditating, it's able to connect with the young one. So similarly, we can connect with the Supreme Lord simply by meditating on him. Okay, so yes. Next slide. Liberation. So after saying all this, now Krishna is saying how, apart from Karma Yoga, because 6th chapter we are going to deal about Ashtanga Yoga, another process by which we can reach the super soul, or understand or realize the super soul. Shutting out all external sense objects, eyes concentrated between the eyebrows, controlling the breathing, controlling the mind, senses and intelligence, always in this state. Okay, this is what Ashtanga Yogi does, 27 to 28. Shutting out all external sense objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the inward and outward breaths within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses and intelligence. A transcendentalist aiming at liberation becomes free from desire, fear and anger. One who's always in this state is certainly liberated. So, but is this practical today? Can we do this? Stopping all senses, mind, intelligence, and then going within and just staring at the tip of the eyes. And you cannot do in the city like this, because there are too many distractions. You have to go to a forest. So that is why it's not practical today. Next slide. So now Krishna is saying how to be peaceful in this world. Peace formula, even in a battlefield. He's telling Arjuna how to be peaceful even there. Yes. Next slide. Knowing that Lord Krishna is the beneficiary in all activities. That means yajna, bhoktaram, yajna tapasam. We are doing all kinds of tapasas, right? Yajnas, the karma kandis are performing yajnas to satisfy the devatas, and then the jnana yogis are renouncing and doing tapasyas. So who is the beneficiary? It is the Lord, not the devatas. Those are performing, yajnas, asking different devatas to appear, but the final beneficiary is actually Krishna in all our activities, whatever it may be. Even you're seeking impersonal Brahman and doing tapasya, the real beneficiary is the Lord, and He is giving the results of all our activities. And Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, the Lord of the entire creation. So he is the Supreme Lord of all the planets and demigods. Entire creation, meaning he's saying a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods. So demigods are parts of Krishna. They're not different forms of Krishna. When we understand that, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities. So how do we know that? The Paramatma is there in all our hearts and he's a well-wishing friend. That's why he's with us all the time, even though we have rejected him. We want to come away from Krishna. We don't want to see him. In fact, most people want to, oh, don't disturb me with thought, don't talk to me about God and all that. That is, when I'm in my deathbed and I can't do anything else, then you tell me, now I want to enjoy. And still, the Lord does not leave us. Because he's a well-wishing friend, always trying to get us back to our real, what's really good for us. If we understand this, that Krishna is actually the beneficiary in all our activities, whatever tapasyas we do, whatever activities we do, and he's the Lord of the entire creation, of all the planets, of all the devatas, and he's our only well-wishing friend. If we can understand these three things, that is the formula for peace. Attains peace from pangs of material miseries. Next slide. So, how to easily achieve this realization in this age? So, a practical application of these principles that is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has come as his own devotee. Imagine, Krishna came as his own devotee to teach us how to do devotion to him because he knows what Kali Yuga is going to be like. And he wants to give us a very easy process. Just like now we have medicine, all bitter things, but then they put it in a capsule and give us so that easily we just take it may be a very strong medicine, but we don't know. We're just taking a sugar-coated pill. That's all. So in the same way, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us all sugar-coated pills. Very easy. No need to do Ashtanga Yoga and do all kinds of tapasyas and nothing like that. No elaborate worship or yajnas, very expensive yajnas. None of those. In this, he says, simply chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra and you will realize God very easily. And not only that, you'll get the topmost realization of love of God by chanting Hare Krishna mantra. And because of doing this, because you're experiencing love for God, then in all your activities, you'll automatically think about him. Whatever is given in the Bhagavad Gita, it seems like very difficult. But if you chant Hare Krishna, it'll become very easy to follow all his instructions. That is why he's so important. And everything, Bhagavad Gita becomes very practical in our lives if you start chanting Hare Krishna mantra. Can we chant once the Hare Krishna Mahamantra? Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please begin. Okay, we'll chant 3 times. Another. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So start your day with chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra as many times as you can. Try chanting 108 times. It might take you 10 minutes, maybe in the beginning, but it's really worth it. You will see the difference. You will see how you're slowly becoming very peaceful. You're developing faith and so on. You try it out. And then we will, every day, at the end of the session, I'll give a little more knowledge about this practical application of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the practical application, number 1. How do we surrender to Krishna? Chant Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So start chanting the first thing in the morning. Before you take your bath, that's also okay. Chant Hare Krishna and see what it does. How your mind becomes peaceful. How you feel connected with God. Even with chanting, even with this 108 times chanting, you'll see some difference. But it has to become, I mean, don't expect big, no need of bath even. Yes, that's what, in the beginning. Because it has no rules or regulations, that's why it's called a Maha Mantra. It's so powerful that any time, in any condition, any situation, you can chant this mantra and it will have effect on you. So suppose you are used to, like, having a bath little late. So please start this and see. That is your first step towards surrendering to Krishna. Okay. Yes. Go to the next slide. How to easily, chanting and association of devotees. That's also very important, because in the material world, we are seeing everybody, going in the opposite direction. They're all thinking, no, we have to enjoy with our senses. That is only happiness. You have to work hard and you have to work for your results. And it's based on competition and envy and all these things. So how will you develop your attitude towards love for Krishna in that scenario? You need association of devotees who are also practicing this, who are surrendering to Krishna, who have faith in Krishna, and who can share their experiences in Krishna consciousness. So these two things, yes, online association. So it is very easy to connect. Yes. Next slide. So only this verse, last verse, this is very important if you remember the formula for peace. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Yes, Atma and Paramatma in our heart. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Please go to the previous, that verse I've just recited once. Bhoktaram, let everyone see that. Vrinda, go to the previous. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. Once more. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarva bhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So the translation is, a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Because when we know that Krishna is so powerful, we'll naturally take complete shelter, because he's also our best well-wishing friend. Okay, thank you very much. So we stop today with this. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Okay. Any questions? Yeah, any questions?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Mataji, in previous sessions, we have come to know that we are a soul. We are a soul and we are not a body.
Yes.
How come, Mataji? I mean, both Atma and Paramatma are in our heart.
Yes.
I think we are only Atma, right, Mataji? And how Paramatma is also there.
Why, you think it's too crowded there?
It's not like that, Mataji. I mean, whatever I gained all through this, that's what I know.
Because
we are Atma.
Yeah, we are Atma, and Krishna is also along with us just to give us, I mean, we cannot function without him, because he's the one who is giving us all intelligence. He's the source of all intelligence. And if he's not there, we won't be able to function. Because he says, from me comes knowledge, forgetfulness, and remembrance. And he is the source of all intelligence for us. So the Paramatma has to be with us, and he's controlling everything. He's controlling the modes of our bodies. He's controlling the whole world. So he's in every atom. So Paramatma is there in a tiny little microbe also, and in a huge elephant also. Paramatma is present, and Atma
No,
also.
no, Mataji. I mean, Atma itself is a part and parcel of.
Yeah, but it's not merged. No, they are two separate people.
No. Atma itself is a part and parcel of Paramatma, right, Mataji? Atma
Yes.
itself. So it is considered itself as a Paramatma, right, Mataji?
No.
Because I am part of Paramatma, so I am different, and Paramatma is also different.
Yes. Krishna says in the second chapter, he said, never was there a time when you did not exist, nor I, nor all these people. That means we are separate. We are connected not because we merge together, but we are in same in interest. We are parts of Krishna in the sense that we our interests are the same.
No, Mataji. My question is,
Mm.
so I am the part of Paramatma. Then how I am different from Paramatma? I am the part of
Meaning,
Paramatma, right,
oh,
Mataji?
we're talking about physical. I mean, physically we have to be part, right? Like parts of a body. If fingers are parts of the body, then it's attached to the body. It's not separate from it. In that sense, right?
Yes, Mataji. I mean, my question is, Mataji,
Hmm.
I am Atma, right, Mataji?
Yes.
I am not the body, I am Atma. And Atma is part of Paramatma, right, Mataji?
Yeah. Yeah.
Part and parcel of Paramatma. So
Yes.
how this is different from Paramatma? Because
Ah,
I am
okay.
Paramatma only. So
Okay.
why
So,
I am different from?
you know what? You are thinking it's like a material thing. That means, see, I'm a finger, okay? And I'm part of this body. That means finger is attached to the body. So there is only one body. It's not a finger is separate from the body, isn't it? You're using that logic to understand Atma and Paramatma. But Krishna says, I expand myself into so many bodies. We are the separated expansions of Him. So part means we have originated from Him, but we have a separate existence. We're not sticking out of His body. Okay?
Okay, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Someone asked about chanting Hare Krishna mantra. What is that? Okay, I'll see you put it in the chat. I'll see.
Yeah, I will repeat. So, somebody have asked Mataji, please summarize some main points of the chapter.
Summarize the main points. I have put it in. Okay, the main points are, okay, you wanted to, okay, the focus is that Arjuna wants to know which is better, to be active at doing work in devotion or to give up work. Is that better? And then just get knowledge. So Krishna says it is better to work in devotion. So we have to be active in, we have to do our job, but in the mood of not being the enjoyer, but doing it as a offering to Krishna, working in devotion, thinking about the Lord. Okay, so that's what was the first section, and how we should not be attached to the results of our activities. And just like this, the comparison was made to the lotus leaf. Okay, how it is untouched by water, even though it's in the water. And by you don't have to first detach yourself. That is the most important knowledge that we got today, is that if you start becoming attached to Krishna, you will automatically become detached. You don't have to separately try to detach yourself. Okay, isn't that a very good point? So that is why chanting the Hare Krishna mantra helps. If you attach yourself to Krishna, automatically you'll understand you're not this body. And one who works like this, in devotion, he is able to control his mind and senses, and he's very dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. And though always working, he is not entangled. And he is able to understand how only the body is I mean, he's able to see all his activities in an objective way. He is very active. His body is functioning, but he can also see that I'm apart from this body. And then there are no sinful actions. He's working in akarma. And why do we have to act like this? Just for our purification. By working, by doing our work very, very dedicatedly, what will happen is it helps us to strengthen our mind and become purified, because we're right there. We know we are attached to the body, and so we are working with our body, but and developing our devotion to the Lord and working with devotion, then we become gradually purified. Then, so if we work like this, we also get unadulterated peace. But one who becomes greedy for the fruits of his labor becomes entangled. And we have to, we are responsible for what we desire. If we desire material sense gratification, then we'll get attached to them. We'll be completely controlled by the modes of material nature, which will keep on degrading us, and we will end up doing sinful activities. On the other hand, we have to desire properly. If we desire to re-establish our connection with Krishna, then he will keep on giving us, he will take care of us in every way. He will also take us closer to him, and he'll also take care of all our entire life, so that we can make progress towards him. And how do we get this knowledge? By by approaching a spiritual master, and he can give us enlightenment. What if sinful? Okay, so we get a spiritual master, and through his mercy we get the knowledge by which our illusion is destroyed. And when we get this knowledge, then we will see Paramatma everywhere, and we will be very equal to everyone. And we can overcome, we can become liberated, and we will become flawless like Brahman. And we can be equal in happiness and distress, and concentrate on spiritual, transcendental pleasure. We get pleasure from spiritual, we get spiritual happiness. And then the three formula for peace is understanding that Krishna is the owner, enjoyer of all our activities, and he is the owner of everything, and he is my best well-wishing friend. If we understand these three things, we'll never be disturbed, and we can get supreme peace. So this is the summary. Is that okay?
Yeah, Mataji. So the next question is by Abhishek. So he asked, in human heart, Paramatma is 8 inches, but in animals are in size. Lord is smaller or what?
Yes, the Lord can become smaller than the smallest. No, he can enter even an atom. He's there in every atom also. In the human heart, he says, I'm in 8 inches. But then, if of a tiny baby, the heart is not that big. So it means that the maximum size, but he can become smaller than the smaller and bigger than the biggest. So he can expand and contract.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah.
When we say we detach, at the same time we get close to Krishna. I feel that it is a little difficult when we get engaged in relations, like when we have our spouse, when we have our parents, when we have our friends, our job. At the same time, we expect children to come into our family. So now, when we look at all of this, when a lot of work is around and we want to be close to Krishna as we progress, how do we explain our relations about these things? Because they might feel that when we say we get detached from the material, material part, and we get spiritually very enlightened, so that we treat everyone, very smoothly. How do we educate the materialistic persons to understand what we mean to tell them. That is a bit of a challenge for me.
That is why don't concentrate on detachment. Concentrate on attachment to Krishna by chanting. That's very powerful. So for ourselves also, we don't have to suddenly become like, I'm very detached. You don't have to worry about that. That is why this Hare Krishna mantra is such a boon. You just chant, and you tell your family also, you can all sit together and chant, or you can, there are so many beautiful kirtans which are available on the net. You can play every day, but according to your taste of what tunes you like, you play that, and your whole family can just sing along with it, as the chorus. So by just concentrating on the positive things, then automatically your consciousness will progress. Even without your knowledge, you'll find that you're developing a service attitude, you're becoming more devoted. All that happens. And then simultaneously you read the Bhagavad Gita. So in that way, you don't have to worry about this detachment so much. Automatically it will happen in a very natural and pleasurable way.
Sometimes, yeah, I'm sorry, go on, Mataji. I'll ask that question later on in WhatsApp.
Yeah.
Mataji, Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. Mataji, how can we practically make that habit ki we can see the Paramatma in others' heart? How we can do practically by developing the habit of seeing?
You have to follow the process. You cannot suddenly, just fit some glasses and start seeing like that. You have to, that is why chanting, starting with chanting and association, I mentioned. Associating with devotees will help you to become more, control the mind, chant somebody was asking how to chant with more concentration and so on. So all this happens because of associating with devotees. That is very essential. Then you can understand this, and gradually your mind will become more peaceful. It is a process. So it takes time, but it is quite fast also. Is that okay?
Oh, okay, Mataji, Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Yeah, you can't just say, okay, tell me now, I want to see the Paramatma. That's not how it works. Okay.
No, Miss, I want to develop that habit. I know, Mataji, it will not come suddenly. But what practically we can do? Okay, I am in the devotee association. Still, with non-devotees, it's difficult, Mataji. With devotees, it is okay. But when we are going in non-devotees association, that time we'll forget that thing and we'll be angry with them or anger on them. Like that happen.
But are you associating with devotees?
Yes, Mataji.
So that is where it will take some time, because this will, you become strong so that you can remember Krishna even when you're with people who are not devotees. And what will happen is, because you'll be able to give Krishna to others. So it will take some time. So right now you just make yourself strong by chanting, reading, doing some service and so on. It takes some time before you become a little strong. Okay, it takes time. You can't. You just increase, chant along with devotees on through the Zoom. Connect with them and chant together. Then your mind, because a chanting will have very good results, but if your mind is wandering, then it gets delayed. So if you chant along with devotees, then you will be able to control your mind and progress. Okay?
Okay, Mataji. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Mataji, you've said that if a person is wanting to do a sinful activity or whatever it is, God, he fulfills his desires, right?
Yeah.
Instead of doing that, shouldn't that person be guided to the correct path? I mean, fulfilling that, sinful action would destroy that person, right? Then shouldn't that person to be guided to the right way?
So that is why the Paramatma has come all the way to be with us. He wants us to experience, because we are rebellious. No, we only chose. We desire to be away from him and experience what it is like to be a controller, to be an enjoyer, to be a god. So Krishna is making those facilities, and by repeating frustration, repeatedly he finds frustration, then only he thinks about why am I suffering, and he turns to God, and then God is there waiting for us. So he wants us to go through those experiences and decide for ourselves. That is the independence he gives. He doesn't want to force us. If he forces us, then where is our freedom?
Okay, so that person must be experience his like he must be realizing on himself and convert to a good person.
Yes, but also if he's fortunate and he comes in touch with someone who's a devotee, then also by that association he can elevate himself, because he was in ignorance, and then somehow the devotee tells him, and he tries to elevate him. So that is the real good fortune.
Okay. Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, there's one more question there. That about 8 inches is a soul 8 inches. Somebody is asking.
Yeah, just take it. So if it will work, then we will move on to the API development of the application.
Oh, okay. So what about it? 8 inches, the Paramatma size, yeah. But I already answered that, Karshni. What is the question?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Hello.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Can I give that reference slok where it is said that the Paramatma size is 8 inches? I want to read that. Once.
Yeah, it is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. I can get you the reference. Okay.
Okay. And Mataji,
yeah.
Mataji, can you just highlight that what are the important sloks in chapter 5? Important sloks.
I will. Okay. I read out. No. Okay. Text 7.
7.
Then text 10. Text 11.
Okay.
Okay. 18.
18.
Okay. You can also include 20. 20. Then 29. Okay.
29.
Okay. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Okay.
I'll stop now. Anyone has any other doubts, you can WhatsApp me. Okay, I'll reply.
Okay.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji.